All right, so today's qualified at the intersection. You're gonna get me. So it's a bit of a continuation from yesterday because I'm still just really blown away by SHRM's decision to platform somebody like Robbie Starbuck. And if you haven't gotten caught up on that, take a look at yesterday's emergency newsletter that I did. I mean, I lost my shit. Let's just be honest. I was really just, I mean, I know that the head of SHRM really seems to court this administration, wanted a position in the Department of Labor, I think it was. And so, I guess people say, what do you expect? Well, I expect you not to platform, I expect you not to be an organization that makes millions of dollars in certification and accreditation and platform somebody who has no certification or accreditation to talk about diversity, equity, inclusion. I mean, it's just insane. And the things that Robbie Starbuck has said are not just casual things. That disadvantage, which always means black, people are being artificially risen to the level of white men. Now, the assumption in that statement is that all white men are superior and all people of color, disadvantaged people, are inferior. And you have to raise them to the white man's level. This is colonialism, this is slavery, this is Jim Crow, this is KKK, this is apartheid. I mean, who in their right mind would platform somebody like that as a trusted voice? I mean, that's what Mr. Taylor, who runs SHRM, said, a trusted voice. How could someone with no education, no formal education that I know of, no education in this area, no certifications, no training, no experience, be a trusted voice? And he is being paid significant amount of money for this. And so what this really is a macro example of what happens to black people in the workplace. Now, the fact that it's Mr. Taylor, who is a black man, and that Van Jones, who's a black man, is going to participate this, and their board chair is a white woman, as I said in my newsletter yesterday, is no surprise, because black women can tell you that some of the most difficult, fiercest pushback they get is that those two groups. Black men, some black men who do not even want to acknowledge black women's presence, certainly don't want to support or help them, and white women who act in ways that are counter to both the needs of women in general and black women specifically. So the idea that it's these folks who came together to do this type of competency checking is no surprise. I have in my book a chapter about how we competency check each other, how white supremacy culture is endemic in us. And so, really this is something to bring home, because here I am, a person who went to undergrad, went to law school, got a certificate in nonprofit management, an extension from NYU, has worked in various types of environments from nonprofit to for-profit, been a consultant, spent 2 years researching and writing a book about race in the workplace. They wouldn't platform me. They would say, I don't have enough experience. I'm not qualified enough. I don't know enough. So here we have the situation that black people in particular find themselves in, and black women at work all the time. You have someone who is 36 years old, barely old enough. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't have any historical grounding. His family is originally from Cuba. They came after the struggles for civil rights. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He has no educational background. What he does bring is a deep hatred and dislike of inclusive policies and a attitude of racial superiority and not even borderline eugenicism. So this is not a difference where we just have a difference of opinion or we have different ideas we want to air. This is ridiculous. I said this before when CNN had Jillian Michaels talk about slavery was no big deal, and they let that stand. And now Abby Phillips did do a response, but Jillian Michaels should have never been on air. Why was she qualified to be platformed? And I have a whole book called Qualified, where I spent 2 years researching data, and you would not platform me. Or it's just like I sent an op-ed to the New York Times about my family's history around slavery, I know they get a lot of requests, okay? But not published, no response, nothing. Jillian Michaels gets a nice, pretty spread, right? She's now the expert, right? I mean, this is what their so-called merit-based system looks like, okay? Make no mistake. We have never had a merit-based system in this country. We have always had a system that favored a certain group of people. In my book, I call them the tall boys. They are white Anglo-Saxon Protestant men. That's who the system was designed to favor. It's not about their merits or qualifications. It's about their identity. You know, I always tell people the strongest, oldest identity politics is whiteness. That is the biggest, baddest identity politics going, right? And so the only time merit begins to matter in this country is when people from the out group, first Jewish folks, then ethnic white immigrants, then women, then black people, as we come into the workforce, oh, you got to meet standards, you got to have metrics, you got to be qualified. But they don't have to meet the same standards, and there is data showcasing that. And what is particularly galling is that SHRM would put resources and publicity towards something like this when over 300,000+ black women have been shed from the workforce over the last 4 to 5 months. That is an emergency. And bringing together a group of experts to talk about that and what can be done about that and what are the causes for that, that is a cause for an HR association. My other big concern is that platforming somebody like him is going to put people in their workplace in a lot of danger. They already are being pushed out of the workforce, and this is only going to increase the hostility and the hostile environment in which black folks work. You'll have people saying, well, SHRM had Robbie Starbuck, and he said, you know, having all these black people, they're just not qualified. This is now a reasonable thing to say. Because in my workplace, I don't have a Van Jones to do a Jerry Springer style argue back with him, right? There are real world consequences to unleashing this poison into the system, right? And so this is, you know, a textbook example of what I call competency checking. Textbook. I have to have all these qualifications, and he does not. He is the trusted voice. A trusted voice of SHRM, a voice they want to hear. Really? Really? I mean, that, so the qualification I make, if you put our resumes up against each other, there's nothing, there's no comparison, but his is the trusted voice. And so, and again, it's not a matter of, we just want to hear different voices. You know, you would not hear different voices around Holocaust denialism. You would not hear different voices saying, you know, women should be sexually assaulted. But when it comes to black folks, fundamentals of our humanity, of our intelligence, of our basic intelligence are matters of different opinions. I mean, this is outrageous on a scale. And this organization gets millions of dollars from companies, from individuals who pay their fees. There is no reason to pay these fees. Look, they are charging companies and corporations money for certifications and for qualifications that allow you to do certain jobs. But apparently certifications and qualifications don't matter for their main stage. So why should you be paying a company that doesn't adhere to their own standards to give you certification for what? What's their certification for? Because certifications don't matter. You could just be an influencer. Now let's say I was an influencer. I just was an influencer, say crazy stuff. They still wouldn't platform me. They would say, oh, well, you don't really have the background. I mean, this is the trick bag that I'm put in. And this is an example of what happens to black people in the workplace all the time. And the data tells us that all that garbage that Robbie Starbuck espouses is untrue. Black professionals have more experience, more education when they get a job, and they are frequently underemployed, meaning they are not in a job commensurate with their education or experience. White people with no education, no advanced education, so high school or associate's degree, frequently have more wealth than black people with a master's or PhD. So his whole premise is a lie. And to promote a lie when there is data available telling you what the truth is not a matter of different opinions. These are not opinions. There are facts. And so, yeah, I just had to come on camera and, you know, talk about this some more because it is obscene. It is disgusting. And The fact that he is a black man is not surprising. And, you know, people have their own self goals, and there's no amount of money apparently that is enough. And folks are willing to do harm to others like them under misguided ideas. And there's this desire of white adjacency and wanting to be part of patriarchy and whiteness that is really strong in a lot of black folks. So there's all these reasons why people do things like this, but they still have to be called out. And yeah, it's just a bridge too far. It was just a bridge too far for me. And so tomorrow we are going to look at specifically how this Supreme Court lines up with the Plessy Court, the court that did separate but equal. And I have to say that all throughout our history, they talk about the Underground Railroad and Harriet Tubman saying some people weren't for the journey. They would go tell Massa that you were fleeing. I mean, those people still exist. We still have those people, right, in our society, in our world. So that's what it is, but they still also need to be held accountable.